No kid sleeps on the floor in our town. Even during the pandemic, local volunteers for Sleep in Heavenly Peace are still hard at work building beds for children who need them. On a crisp November morning, members of the Apex Baptist Church sponsored a volunteer bed building event in the town of Apex, North Carolina. Core volunteers of the Durham, North Carolina chapter of SHP arrived early in the morning with materials and equipment, and, with church members helping with electrical hookup, set up and supplied the various workstations required to manufacture bunk beds in the church parking lot. At the first station, volunteers inspect the raw lumber, remove staples and tags, and measure and mark cutting positions for the components that will be needed. The radial arm saw makes quick work of cutting the lumber to the required sizes. Periodically, volunteers measure cut boards to ensure everything is on track. Lowe's Home Improvement supplies lumber, hardware, and other materials to the Durham SHP chapter at cost. Next, the sanding station volunteers smooth surfaces and rough edges, and sand off any ink printing or label residue that may have been on the lumber. At the tapping station, boards are placed into a die and hammered to produce imprints to guide later drilling. The design of the die ensures that the raised spikes produce the marks precisely and consistently. Next, volunteers hand drill small pilot holes for later wood screw assembly. As this fall morning wore on, things warmed up, and it turned into a spectacular day to be outside working. The largest and longest boards that go into SHP beds are the side rails. Volunteers at these stations tap the ends of the boards to mark the locations for pilot holes, which they also drill here. Finally, a smaller wood strip is screwed to the edge of the side rails, on which the slats will rest. Drill press operators, using the guide marks made earlier at the die tapping station, drill the larger holes through which bolts will pass during final assembly of the beds at delivery time. Most of the components come together at the headboard assembly stations. The workers at these stations place a pair of 2x4 boards and one 2x6 into a jig, then lay thinner boards across these at the ends. Screwdrivers go through the pre-drilled large bolt holes to help position things precisely. Finally, screws are driven into place. The board is flipped over, and the process is repeated on the opposite side. Robert Sarge Sweeney founded the Durham chapter of Sleep in Heavenly Peace.
Mr. Sweeney, what are you doing here?
Hey Joe, just doing another part of the build here. This is actually called the QC section, okay? And this is where we determine whether it's a top bunk or a bottom bunk. And the way we do that is, see these holes here? If it's a top bunk, we have 3 holes, and that's for the top, and that 3rd hole is for the safety rail up on top of the bunk bed. The process is pretty cool. It truly is pretty cool. And I've said it time and time again, I could not do this without you guys. I could not do it without you guys helping us make this all happen. And places like this Apex Baptist Church, who have totally took care of us. They've been waiting a long time to build this because of COVID. We actually had it set up last year, but we had to shot it out. Now we finally got to do the job. It's so cool. And they're very, very good at, and they're enthusiastic, and they love doing it. Thank you.
Good job, yes sir.
All the visible wood components of the beds are dipped into a light stain, which is made from steel wool steeped in vinegar.
I'm counting in my head, that's what.
How long do you leave it in for?
20 seconds.
Okay. I'm sorry? I think so.
After staining, the wood is laid out to dry. Eventually, each headboard will be branded with the SHP logo. Apex Baptist Church not only whipped up breakfast for everyone and brought out a large crew of volunteer bed builders, they supplied a great lunch as well at our noon break. This build went very smoothly. We produced 10 pairs of bunk assemblies, and everyone did a great job of following safety guidelines. It was a great day to build beds with sleep in heavenly peace. Whether you know someone whose child needs a bed, want to volunteer to help build beds, or see about your organization sponsoring a build, or would like information on starting an SHP chapter in your own area, you can contact Sleep in Heavenly Peace by going to the organization's website at shpbeds.org.